and they have these goals and dreams and ambitions and what they want to do. And like our daughter, I want to do this in gymnastics and I'm going to, and there's no doubt, and she's excited about it. And it's just really cool to, like at what point in our lives do we start losing that?
Yeah. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Solid. Today is episode 57, and I'm so excited. I get the incredible opportunity to have Kelcey as my guest, and we're going to talk about a lot of things today, from what we did to build a business, how we got financially independent at a young age, what are some of the sacrifices we made, what are some things we do with our children to help them learn these same philosophies that we were taught at a young age that have some impact on our lives. I think today you're going to get so much out of this episode today. So please make sure you have a notepad and a pen and you take some notes. And hey, leave us some comments. Send us some comments about what you love about some of the things we're talking about. Maybe some things you disagree with. We love to hear that feedback. And so we can constantly give our feedback and what has helped us so much. That is our goal. Brandon and I, when we started this podcast, we have a mission of helping people learn the solid principles that have helped us build such incredible lives that we're so grateful for. So thank you guys, for those of you that are listening, that you plug in, you support our podcast. Thank you for all of you that are doing Solid 30 with us right now. We're having such an incredible time. By the time this comes out, we'll be done. And so congratulations to all of you that finished. And so again, thanks for plugging in today and listening to this podcast. Remember, stay solid. I want to dress. I choose comfort over style these days.
I have to talk you out of wearing Crocs to a 5-star restaurant.
It's awesome. I used to be, a long time ago, it was like if I walked into a nice restaurant, I felt like I didn't belong there. Now I feel like I belong there in Crocs or not, So whatever.
Barefoot or not.
I would love to go barefoot if they'd let me.
Oh, gross.
That would even be better.
Okay.
That's why I like Crocs. But I think...
Are we starting?
Yeah. So I think today I just want to talk about a few things. We've talked in the past a little bit about like our upbringings and our family life and all that kind of stuff, but I really wanted to talk today about what are some things that we did that you feel like really helped us create this successful life that maybe you see other people don't do, or you see successful people and we watch other families that are successful and they built great businesses or they have great lives. Mm-hmm. What are some common denominators that you see and you're like, oh my gosh, they do this and we do this, and we feel like those things have helped. I mean, let's start like early on in our career. When we really first started dating, and then right after, it wasn't long after that, we went into business together.
Yeah.
And
we started dating 2005 and we went into business 2006.
Yeah. So
not.
And we were just young kids. So we're still trying to figure out our relationship, but then also work a business together.
Yeah.
And so what do you think that early on, because it wasn't easy. And a lot of times we forget, and this is an important thing. A lot of times people dwell on the hard times where I know I do a good job. I forget like all the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Because just the rewards are so worth it. And if I try not to live in the rear view mirror.
The past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm always, I don't know, it's a blessing and a curse to constantly live in the future, because it's hard for me to enjoy the moment because I'm always thinking about the next step, right?
Right.
But as hard as it was early on, what do you think are some things that we did really good early on as we were just dating, starting a business, figuring out our life together, all this stuff?
I mean, I think the biggest thing was we had mentors, because if we wouldn't have had that, I don't know. We had somebody to model.
Yeah.
So we found somebody that, we want what they have. We want their life. So we just need to do whatever they tell us to do.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it would have been as easy if we didn't, exactly what Brandon and Lexi did. We just modeled them, 100%. But I don't know. It's so weird looking back, trying to think of it exactly, how it all played out and what we would have changed, because if we would have changed something, would we be where we're at today?
Yeah. So let me ask you this. I think one of the things you did a really good job of early on is in the areas I was weak, you were willing to step up and be strong. For example, I didn't like to talk to people I didn't know. And you've always been a social butterfly and been so good with people. And still today, that's how it is, right? Like we'll show up to like one of the kids' sporting events or
that's
whatever.
Our relationship. That is like, I'm over here talking to every parent and Jeff doesn't say one word the entire time. He's just over by himself.
Yeah.
And that's been us the whole time.
Yeah. So I think that's helped a lot. What caused you early on in the business? Because it's not like we were making a lot of money.
Yeah.
What do you think it was? What was your mindset that caused you to go, Jeff's doesn't love this part? Because I was willing to do it. It's not like I didn't do it. I still did it when I needed to.
Yeah.
But you definitely stepped up and you would prospect and talk to people and constantly send me referrals. What was your mindset behind being willing to step up and do what it took?
Once I was sold on our business and exactly what it took to be successful. Yeah. And obviously I plugged into everything. And that was great because you told me, hey, I just need you to plug into every single thing. I need you to come to every meeting. I need you to be on every call. And once you told me that, I was like, well, that's easy, right? I can show up to everything. And I got locked in on what it took to be successful. I think Brandon talked a lot about prospecting and going out and just meeting people. And I saw that firsthand because when I worked at Best Buy, Brandon came in and talked to me weekly, multiple times a week.
Followed up with you.
Followed up. And so I saw when he would talk about that, I saw, that's exactly what he does. He goes and he meets people and he becomes friends with people and, talks to them about his business. And so for that part of the business seemed so easy to me because I felt like I believed in what we did. I believed that it worked and that we could become successful in the business. Yeah. And if all I had to do was talk to people and share, I almost looked at it like I was doing something wrong by not talking to people about what we were doing.
Yeah. So I think that's a good point because a lot of times when you see someone start any business, wife's going to her job, husband's going to his job, or they're going, to work separately.
Yeah.
And they're always kind of having these two separate lives. And I think sometimes they don't realize how much power there is in having their spouse being able to complement their flaws or weaknesses or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think such a great piece of advice just to get people's spouse to know exactly what it is they're doing and believe in it.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a lot of, I feel like people's downfall is when the spouse isn't on board, it's their thing. That does work sometimes in some business, but when you're starting from the ground, and you need 100% of your spouse's support, you need them involved, you need them talking to family and friends about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And we were so locked in on what we were doing, and it was just, it's all we did. It's all we breathed, talk. We didn't even have conversations.
And it's all we wanted to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was exciting. It was way fun. I never imagined how awesome it would be.
Right.
And we enjoyed it. And when you love something, and at first, no, we didn't love it. Yeah. I was like, I don't know anything about financial services. I still live at home. I don't know what a mortgage is. I've never heard of life insurance. And so when we first got involved, I didn't understand, I didn't understand that it was how much we were going to love it, but it just became our life. And I loved everything about it.
Yeah. So I think the way we got to that place is one of the things that I look back on is I was constantly selling you, not only myself, but everybody else, but also you. I was constantly selling you on if we paid this price, here's what our future would look like.
Yeah.
And maybe talk a little bit about that because I feel like a lot of people, they forget to sell themselves on where they're going, let alone their spouse and everybody else around them. And maybe because they're scared of failure or scared of
they don't come up through.
Yeah, not achieving. Mm-hmm. But I was just so locked in, we're going to make this happen, right? I don't care what it takes.
Yeah.
And I'm going to sell everybody around me. I'm going to constantly be talking about it and almost just design this life with my words. So maybe talk a little bit about that.
That's your MO. You still do that to this day. Sometimes it drives me crazy. Like, he's just like programming. He's programming our family because this is what he wants, like selling around the world.
Yep.
Right? Do you do that every day? You put that in all of our minds.
Reasons why we should do it.
Reasons why we should do it.
Yep.
And there's 0 reasons of why it's not good. It's all just, it's going to be amazing.
Yep.
But yes, you did that. I remember, and you probably did it because it was your way to sell yourself as well.
Exactly. Yep.
You know, like, this is what we're going to do. And you always spoke about the future. You always spoke about, you know, we're not going to spend money today. We're going to save because we're going to have this in the future. And you still do that. Yeah. Hey, if we do this, this is what we're going to have in the future. And we did vision boards.
Yep.
And you were always just selling me. I just remember you wouldn't let me even like go shopping. And I was like, I can't even buy a shirt. And you're like, we're going to have so much money in the future. You can buy whatever you want.
Yep.
And, and then once you got me locked in, because you were constantly selling me on everything, then you couldn't get, like, there was a point in our career at the very beginning where you tried to quit. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh no, like, absolutely not. So that was a blessing. Yes. Yeah. Then you probably were like, what? I was like, we're doing this. Like, we're in this for the long haul. But I was so sold out. 1, because I plugged into everything, and 2, because you sold me on what we were going to do with our lives. And so the fact of quitting and not following through with it, like, made me sick.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't care. We're doing this no matter what.
It's because so much of every conversation we had, everything we had thought about, our entire future was designed around making this happen. There was no other option, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's such a great piece of advice that if those of you guys that are wanting to succeed and you're wanting to make something happen, you're wanting to make your dreams a reality, it needs to be something you're not just thinking about or writing down in your goals, but you're also verbalizing to everybody around you. We used to constantly talk about if everybody around you doesn't know your goals and dreams, they're probably not going to happen, right? Everybody should know what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, because you put yourself like on the hot seat.
Yeah.
Like, and I think we told everybody, we told our family, we told our friends, we told people that just didn't believe in us that this is what we were going to do. We told Brandon, you know, we put our butt on the line per se. And I still remember that time when you were doubting and, you know, we were broke. We had no money. It was hard. Yep. We moved away from our family, our friends, anybody we knew. And you're like, I don't think we can do this. And what did I say to you?
I can't remember how.
I said, okay, you don't want to do this? Yeah. Call Brandon. Yeah. Call Brandon and tell him that you quit. Yeah. And you weren't willing to do that. And it reminds me of yesterday when Rome was doing soccer. Yeah. I had told you this. He goes to 2 practices back to back. And it had to have been at least 100 degrees outside yesterday. Yeah. And so he practices for almost 3 hours. And midway, probably we're at 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours, he came over and put his backpack on and said, I'm done. I'm tired. I can't do this. I want to leave. And I was like, oh, you want to leave? Okay. Go tell your coach. Go walk over there to your coach and tell him that you want to leave, that you're quitting. And he sat there for a second and he was like, yeah, like trying to act tough. Like, I'm going to do that. And I was like, okay, go. Well, really his soccer ball was, his coach had it like in his hand. So I said, go get your soccer ball and tell your coach that you're leaving, that you don't want to play, you quit. And he's like, I guess I'll play, because he didn't want to let him down. Right. Yeah. Because he knew that if he had to go tell him that he was leaving, he felt like he would let his coach down. Same thing with us. Yeah. Right. You didn't want to let your coach down because you had told them what you were going to do. Yeah. So
it's really good. I think that, you know, shines a light on the importance of building relationships too.
Yeah.
In business, there's always these philosophies of like, oh, you can't build relationships with people you work with, where really that's what you should do. You should build great relationships with people that you care about, that you see potential in. Mm-hmm. And when you build relationships with people, that's how they respond, right? They care more about wanting to make them proud than anything.
Yeah.
So I think it's so powerful. So let me ask you this. So we go through this part where we start having some success because we're willing to do these things. We're prospecting, we're setting appointments, and then we moved to a whole new city. We didn't know anybody, and we were all in. I mean, there was no going back at this point, right? Yeah. And we had struggled financially at the beginning, because it's not like when we moved we had any money. We were broke, and we were working morning, noon, and night. And during that time, it was like, because we had sold ourselves on this journey and what it was going to look like, we never complained about the work. We never complained about the effort. And really, I mean, for years, I know you were at the office at 7 o'clock in the morning, and you weren't getting home till 11 or 12 o'clock at night. And that wasn't stage talk. It was the reality.
Yeah.
And we were doing that 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like we had to. We didn't have a boss. We didn't have someone telling us to show up. We didn't feel like we were, it was mandatory. We just had this desire, or almost this uncomfortable feeling, like if we weren't working, we weren't at the office, we weren't getting close to our goals and dreams.
Yeah.
We weren't paying the price that we knew we had to pay in order to become successful. So what do you think it was that allowed you as a spouse, as you were running the office, you were doing all the paperwork, you were getting everybody licensed. I mean, you were doing a lot. Mm-hmm. You never complained about it. For you took ownership of it, right? I didn't have to ask you to do more. In fact, it was quite the opposite. I was telling you, hey, you shouldn't be at the office till 11 or 12 o'clock at night. It's not safe for you to be leaving the building that late by yourself. And eventually that's what happened, is we hired someone to help you in the office, because I thought that you would spend less time at the office if I hired someone to help you. And it wasn't the case.
Yeah.
You were still at the office just as much. We were just getting more done, which allowed us to have more success in the business. So what was your mindset around being willing to pay that price? Because a lot of times you'll see one or the other in a relationship be paying this huge price.
Yeah.
And maybe there's some issues that it causes because they don't see each other or whatever. But we didn't have that. You were just not all in, but or not just all in, but you were also giving it everything you had, physically, mentally.
Yeah.
I
think, because you sold me on what we were going to do, helped me get all in, obviously, because I had a vision of what we were doing, like why I was doing that. And then I think self-improving, that obviously changed our lives, because there's lots of negative, there's lots of doubt, there's lots of fears, but constantly self-improving helped me weed all that out. And there was just no quit. I knew, listening to mentors in our business, listening to outside people that have had success, what it took to be successful. And I always in my mind, this can't get hard enough. And another thing I always said was, nobody's willing to do what we're willing to do.
Right.
And because of that, that's why we're going to be successful. So I felt like if I could do more, even the long hours, working early in the morning, late at night, weekends, holidays, I knew most people weren't willing to do that.
And not just doing it, but doing it with this great attitude, like a want to attitude, not a have to attitude.
Right.
It's like, you never looked at it like, oh, I have to be at the office. It was like, I'm going to the office. I'm going there early. I'm going to work hard.
I loved it. I was excited. Where we were going, what we were building, and I was excited to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So the thought of, and I just felt like we had to do this together, and we had to just put our heads down. And I never looked at it as work.
Right.
I never looked at it like, I have to do this. I was like, I'm excited to. I really was. It was my passion. It became an obsession.
Yeah. It's not a have to. It was a get to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I craved it. It was just like what I wanted to do. And the great thing about the company we were in is that they measure your success, and there's always somebody beating you, and there's always another level. And because of that, we're both very competitive, and we always had that next goal. There was never like, oh, we did it, we're done. It was like, okay, next, like now we get to go to this level. Now we get it. Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing on goal setting. Like when you're setting goals, you want to always make sure that before you hit a goal, you have another goal that you're chasing that keeps you going towards something else, right? And if you do that, then you're always going to have another level to go to, and you're never going to feel like you actually arrived, which is a positive thing. Like a lot of times people want to get to the place. I know at one point in my career, I felt like, we became millionaires at a young age. I remember I was 25 and you were what, 22?
Maybe.
We became cash millionaires.
Was it 20? I thought it was 26 and 23.
Yeah, I turned 26 2 months later.
Okay.
So, yeah. And so here we were, cash millionaires at a young age. And I always thought that like, if I had $1 million, I would feel comfortable, and like that feeling in my gut would go away.
Right. And
then I'll never forget, once we had that, it was like I felt the exact same thing. And I realized that that feeling that I felt I was looking to get rid of was really my ambition.
Yeah.
It wasn't something I wanted to go away. It was something that I wanted to keep fueling that fire, but it didn't feel good. But it was just, I think you hear that term all the time, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And ambition is uncomfortable. It's your desire to progress. It's your desire to get better. It's your desire to work harder, your desire to achieve another goal, right?
Yeah. And that's something we're constantly trying to teach our children too. I mean, it goes with it. It's not just business. It's anything in life. Uncomfortable. If you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing.
Right.
If you're just stagnant, you have a cush life, you're not doing anything to progress. Working out.
Yeah.
You always are telling me, add more weight. I'm like, but it hurts. It hurts so bad. But I know that if I don't feel really uncomfortable, I'm not growing.
Yeah.
We're learning Spanish right now.
Yeah.
And what's the app called?
Duolingo.
Yeah. And some days I'm like, this sucks. Like, I don't want to do this. Yeah. But I just know that I've got to stick to it. Discipline.
Yeah.
We're on day 48 or something like that.
Today's 49.
49?
Yeah.
You've already completed yours today. I haven't. But I just know it's uncomfortable to change and to learn and to grow. And that's for a reason most people aren't willing to do that. When it starts getting uncomfortable, they want to retreat.
Yeah. I also think that uncomfortable feeling is where all the excitement of life comes from.
Oh, yeah.
I used to give this talk when we were young kids. We wanted to be like an astronaut or the president or a veterinarian or whatever. And none of it ever revolved around how much money we were going to make. It was just this thing that we could do. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is we go to high school and we get done with high school and, we go to college and, or not, or you get a job and you start having to buy shampoo and toilet paper and you start realizing like, dang, I got to work hard to provide this life. And then, maybe you have a child and then all of a sudden you're working all these hours and maybe you were working full time and going to college part time. And then you find out you're going to have a baby. And so then you go work full time. I used to give this talk and then eventually one day you wake up and you're 40 years old and you're just average. But if you think back to that time when you were young and someone said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you say, I want to be an astronaut or I want to be the president or I want to, whatever it was like this excitement filled with possibilities where if we can keep ourselves in that place of growth and possibilities, that's where all the excitement of life comes from. And a lot of people get caught up in the monotonous day-to-day activities, which are required for discipline, but then they're seeking comfort. And so the monotonous day-to-day activities become comfortable and they never add on what they need to add on to keep it uncomfortable for growth, to keep themselves in that possibility-driven life. Yeah. Right?
That childlike almost
enthusiasm.
Yeah. And I always, I try to just listen to our children because obviously, and they have these goals and dreams and ambitions and what they want to do. And like our daughter, I want to do this in gymnastics and I'm going to, and there's no doubt. And she's excited about it. And it's just really cool to, at what point in our lives do we start losing that? Yeah. Just getting caught up in the the rat race and people just give up.
I also think, and a lot of people lose it when they start reducing expectations or they start letting expectations go, where like us as parents, we're constantly raising expectations and constantly, hey, if that's what you want to do, here's what it's going to take. We expect that you're going to pay the price. If that's what you want, then here's the price you got to pay. And we expect them to do it. Where a lot of times people that don't succeed in life, they have these desires, but they don't have these high expectations to meet it. And so, we say a lot of times people would come into our business, and before they would get there, that we would ask them like, hey, if you won the lottery, what would you do with the money? What kind of house would you live in? And you just get people dreaming about their actual dream life. What kind of house, what kind of vehicles would you drive? What kind of schools would you send your kids to? Would you retire your parents? Like, what are your actual dreams? Like, what are your desires out of life? And then we would recruit people to help them achieve those dreams. And we knew it was possible because we did it, right?
Right.
But then what happens, people would come in, and as soon as there was these uncomfortable situations that they had to accomplish, right? Whether it was prospecting or doing appointments or late nights or all the stuff that we had been doing for years, we watched them do. And then all of a sudden they would shrink their goals and dreams to fit their current reality, to get rid of the uncomfort or discomfort, right?
Yeah.
So
they start justifying why they don't need those things that they originally told us they wanted, or big things they wanted to do, because they realize, oh, dang, like I'm going to have to do some things that I don't want to do. I'm going to have to give up some nights with my families. I'm going to have to give up, family reunions. I mean, we didn't do any of that stuff. And it was 3 years? We didn't go to anything. I mean, maybe it was longer than that, but 3 years we seriously did not even see any of our family.
Yeah.
If they came and saw us, but we weren't going to travel to go to Christmas parties, and because we just looked at that as a distraction. But most people would never give that up. But now we get to go to every single thing every day.
Yeah,
forever.
No matter what it is, yeah. We get it. Yeah, it's a small price to pay for an unlimited amount of freedom. It was like we used to always say, if you're willing to, it's not like it's less work. If you're going to build a business, you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to be successful. It's not like you're going to work less. You see all these people successful. It's you're taking 40 years of work and condensing the time, right? You're condensing the time frame. So you're taking 40 years of work and putting it into 5 years, where you've got to expect that there's going to be longer days and nights and weekends and holidays, and that you go away for 5 years or whatever. And then if you're actually willing to do those uncomfortable things, you're actually willing to add more weight. You're actually willing to get into those uncomfortable situations, and stay uncomfortable means you're getting better and better and better. It's like if you go to the gym and you want to get stronger means you have to continuously lift heavier. You don't get stronger if it doesn't get heavier.
I think I just learned this over the past couple of months.
Right?
I'm getting stronger, but I'm using the same way I've always done.
Yeah, sometimes people don't realize you might look good, you might look better, but it doesn't mean you got stronger.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you want to actually get stronger, you have to put more weight on. Well, it's the same thing with business. If you want to get better, if you want to get more results, you actually have to do more sales calls. You have to do more presentations. You have to close more sales. You have to train more people. You have to develop more leaders. You actually have to be willing to make uncomfortable decisions and keep yourself uncomfortable so that you can progress and grow.
Yeah.
And then that's what also gives room for the leadership that you're developing, room to grow. And sometimes that's uncomfortable too, is like letting people go out and do a presentation when they're not really ready.
Yeah.
And you're watching somebody who sucks and you're like, oh my gosh, if I could just do this for them.
Yeah.
But then they never have the room to grow. And so it's not only uncomfortable for you as a leader, but it's also uncomfortable for them. But that's the only way that growth can ever happen, right? Yeah. And I think for kids, we're watching our kids. I was telling you yesterday, I got Aspen from gymnastics, and I was watching her do these lunges.
Yeah.
And they had her do walking lunges, like hundreds of them.
Yeah.
And I could just tell she was like so uncomfortable. But the thing I was so impressed with her is she didn't complain. Mm-hmm. She didn't grimace in her face. She was tired. She never complained about it.
Yeah.
She just did it. And I think a lot of times that has to do with us just telling her like, hey, winning's uncomfortable. It just hurts, right? If you're not uncomfortable, if you're not pushing yourself to that limit, you're not going to grow.
We're constantly teaching our kids that, and you think that they're so young and they don't really understand, but I told Aspen a long time ago, I would always tell her, be careful what you say because your words become reality. And she uses that with her brothers all the time. Like she'll say, don't say that. You know, if it's something mean or if it's something negative, she'll say, don't say that because your words become true and what you say becomes. So I always tell her, you know, if you, and what does she do when she has to do a trick of whatever?
A skill
at gymnastics. And we tell her, before you do it, visualize yourself.
Close your eyes.
Visualize yourself doing it perfect. Yeah. And now she does that like constantly.
Yeah, almost every time.
Almost every time she closes her eyes and she imagines herself doing it, you know, the way she's supposed to. And that's just because we've constantly, you know, said those little things. Even if you think they're not paying attention, they're paying attention.
Yeah.
And it's just...
So I think this is a good segue of going into, so like all of these things we did. We started winning, made millions of dollars, saved millions of dollars, lived this dream life. And then now we have the opportunity of pouring those things back into our kids.
Yeah.
Right? So looking at these things that we're pouring into our kids and trying to teach our kids that we learned, I feel like a lot of times people do these things to give their kids an easier life.
Yeah.
Where I don't feel like our perspective is necessarily like that. And our kids are, of course, our kids are still young and, you know, there's still a lot of time for them to grow and we'll hopefully they turn out. We do our best for them to turn out great, you know?
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of the things we do isn't to make our kids' lives more comfortable, but to just teach them fundamentals. You know, like one of the things with Rome in school is I'm always telling them, look, our job is not to teach you all this stuff, or it's not even just so you can learn it, but it's so you can learn how to learn. Because through school, if you can learn how to learn, you can learn anything in life.
Yeah.
Right? But I don't want you just to do school just to learn some information or regurgitate it back onto a test. To me, it just never made any sense of why we would teach kids these things that they never remember.
Yeah.
But if you can learn how to learn, then you can be successful. And I think one of those things is, you know, Rome is playing with these kids in soccer right now that are really a lot better than him. But his expectations are so high. These kids have been playing for, you know, 5 years and Rome's been playing for 1 year, and he totally expects that he should be just as good as them. And yeah, he gets fired up and he gets mad when those kids are better or whatever, but he's also willing to do the work to get better. And so how do you think that these principles of help us develop a mindset of raising great kids? I mean, what do you think? Because, you know, a lot of times when we were building our business, people would say, oh yeah, but you don't have kids yet. And they would make all these excuses.
Yeah.
You know, and I just never could understand how somebody would use their children as an excuse, where for us, it was always the reason we were doing it. It was the reason we were doing hard things. It was the reason we were trying to get better. So we become better parents. We could give them a better life, give them more opportunities, and do these things for our children that we didn't even have yet. So we didn't look at it as a sacrifice. We looked at it as an opportunity to provide a better life for our kids that we didn't even have yet.
Yeah.
So what do you think success has done for us in having a family, not only just our marriage, but our children, and how much do you see that impacts our children in their life, especially compared to what we see other kids or whatever happening in the world today?
Yeah. I mean, obviously they model us and we see that it's almost scary.
It is.
I'm like, oh no, they model the good, the bad.
Yeah.
And you're like, you don't realize that you do something until you see your child act in the same way that you do. And you're like, okay, I need to stop doing that.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times we don't even have to say anything. They just model us and they see us out in the gym every day. And Aspen, when we were doing 75 hard, we'd work out, we'd do our walks, and then when I'd put her to bed, I would read my 10 pages, and she always kept me accountable, right? She's like, are you reading your 10 pages? Did you go on your walk tonight? Are you still doing 75 hard, Mom? And then she started doing it.
Yep.
We never told her, hey, you need to, she was like, I need to work out because I'm doing 75 hard, Mom. I have to read my 10 pages at night. And then the cold plunge, right? We did the 30-day cold plunge. So it's just these expectations. And I think through our example, and us obviously having high expectations for our children, you know, and you're just an animal. I mean, sorry. I'm like, wow, like Dad is not normal at any level. But we just have these high expectations. And because of that, I think that they have high expectations of themselves.
Yeah.
Like Rome's coach was telling me, I see
his coach was also a professional soccer player,
right.
So he knows what it takes to succeed in that sport.
And a lot of these kids, they've been playing since they were 4, some 2, and Rome's been playing for a year, and he just says he has so much passion and he works so hard. Like, I just see that in him, which makes me proud, because sometimes he doesn't do that in school.
Right.
He fights you on school.
All the time, yeah.
But we found something that he's willing to give his all. And I told him, I said, Rome, we need to run every day. We need to do your drills every day. And so he's like, hey, Mom, we need to go run. And we've been running like 1.5 miles, 2 miles. And he wants to do his drills. And just, you set these expectations, and then you watch them want to set expectations for themselves.
Yep. And what's cool about that is that I see is then Zion, who's the youngest, he wants to keep up with them.
Yeah.
And to see him at the age of 4 wanting to be just like his older brother, and then he's seen his older brother working this hard, and he just thinks it's totally normal. Mm-hmm. Like, he doesn't even think there's a price being paid.
Right.
And he's just doing it because he's doing it a bunch too, right? He's playing soccer a lot in 100-degree weather, and he just thinks it's totally normal.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun for them. But I don't feel like, and maybe I push our kids because I've just always been that I just want like better, more, do more, which sometimes you tell me, okay, but I don't feel like we make them do anything.
No.
I just watch Aspen and her passion for gymnastics, and she's at gymnastics 10 hours a week, and then she comes home and she's constantly practicing. She's trying to get better. Her coach told her, hey, you have to get these skills down. She had 3 days to get 3 skills down to move to the next level.
And they weren't easy skills. They were like, one of them was doing a cartwheel on the high beam,
a back tuck off of the beam.
Yeah.
And then like this certain roll to handstand. And that night, she came home and she's like, hey, Mom, I need you to help me do these. That same night, I'm like, well, no, I just want to practice. And we did back tucks off of our bed until she got them by herself.
Yeah.
But it's just, she has, okay, like if you tell me what I got to do, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do whatever I got to. And that's how I felt like we were in businesses. Tell me what it takes to win.
Yeah.
Tell me, and always if somebody said, okay, go out and get 10 names and numbers a day, I always thought, okay, well, if that's what they're telling everybody to do, I want to be better than everybody else.
Yeah.
So I got to go get 20 names and numbers a day.
Yeah.
Or if they say, go on this many 2 to 4 appointments a night, we got to do more than that. That was always my thinking. Whatever we're told to do or the expectation, I've got to do a little bit more.
Yeah.
If they say work 5 days a week, I'm working 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So it's just constantly, and we do that to ourselves all the time still.
Oh yeah. I think it's become who we are.
Yeah.
And it's what's led to success in a lot of things is getting comfortable being uncomfortable. It's like Zion yesterday got in the cold plunge.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't ask him to.
That was the cutest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. Not very often do you see a 4-year-old want to do a cold plunge.
Yeah.
But he's watching Aspen do one. And Aspen wanted to get in the cold plunge because she wasn't feeling well, right? She'd been working her butt off, and so she wants to get in the cold plunge. So she gets in the cold plunge and does a minute in the cold plunge. And at 48 degrees is not easy for a kid to do that. And so she goes, and then as soon as she gets out, he goes, I want to do it. And he runs in, puts on his swimming suit, and he comes back in, and the first time he like dips his foot in, and then he's like, oh, it's cold. So he gets out, but he just could not be okay with himself without getting all the way in.
Yeah.
Right. And so then he gets all the way in, and we were just cheering him on, and he just felt so good.
So cute.
And then today he goes, hey, Dad, can we do a cold plunge again?
Oh.
It's like so cool
like modeling.
Yes.
Well, I was giving him a shower. I don't know. This was a couple weeks ago. And I was like, okay, you're all done. Like, let's get out. And he said, first I got to take a cold shower.
Yeah.
And he turns all the way to cold. And he's like, I take a cold shower at the end. And I was dying because I know that that's what you do.
Yeah.
But I had never seen him do that. It was the cutest thing. And He's 4.
Yeah. It's amazing to see that these things that we learned, really, we were just kids too. I mean, when we came into business, we were 17 and 20.
Yeah.
And so we start learning these things, and it was very uncomfortable for us because it wasn't part of necessarily who we were. I mean, both of us were athletes, which I think helped a lot. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't necessarily built in or ingrained into our lifestyle at that point. Yeah. So it was a lot of change happening for us, where our children, because they're born into this, and we don't have to push them. They just model us, and they're constantly seeking uncomfortable situations. But for them, they're totally comfortable being uncomfortable because they know that these things, and they watch it, like Rome getting so much better at soccer, or Aspen getting so much better at gymnastics. They're progressing.
Yeah.
And I think I've always said this, I believe true happiness lies in progression, whatever it is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The cure to depression is progression. And we watch our children progress in their sports, and they get better. Or Zion loves basketball, bounce a ball around the house constantly, and I'll just teach him a new, like I've been teaching him, he's 4, how to dribble behind his back and stuff like that, and he just has so much fun. And it isn't the dribbling the ball, or it isn't playing soccer or doing gymnastics, it's them progressing that is causing that natural dopamine where they're excited about life, right? And a lot of that comes from modeling. And so if you can teach yourself to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and you start progressing, and like in business, we are getting recognition, and we were going on trips, and we were doing all this. Yesterday, I was talking to your mom about success and just how much fun it is to win, right? And when you're winning, if you can remind yourself when you're winning and you're traveling around the world and you're making a ton of money and you're helping new people win, and you're going through these challenges, but they lead to this progression. And during those times, as hard as you work, you always remember those times. Like we talk about constantly, the first 4 years of our career, they were the hardest time we ever worked in our lives.
Yeah, but the best times.
Yes, and we're always talking about it was so much fun, but it was so much fun because we were progressing. I mean, we went from nothing to millionaires, and it was so much fun because we were progressing like that, And I think as hard as it was, there were a lot of times where we were scared to death. We're crying, we're just
crying to each other.
Yeah, doubting ourselves. Are we good enough? All of these challenges we went through are, some of our top leaders quitting and getting recruited by other companies, and all this kind of stuff that we went through. But yet they were the most fun times in our career because of the progression, right?
Yep.
So let me ask you this. So we go through this, we start our career, and now it's how much benefit it's having on our family, and we're still young. I mean, we feel a lot younger than maybe we really are, but we really are still so young. But now we live this incredible life, and I think sometimes people forget how good it can be, and they forget that these character traits and these values and these priorities you build in by creating daily habits and disciplines and being obsessed with progression and doing all these things, they lead to this incredible life where, we used to always say winning is easy, but so is losing, right? It's just habits.
Yeah.
And so maybe talk a little bit about how good it is to live the life we live today because of the price we paid for so many years.
Yeah.
Because I never thought it would be this good.
Right.
I don't think there's anything anybody could do to help me understand the value of total freedom. As many times as leaders try to tell us, we had so many mentors that would tell us what it was going to feel like. They would describe it for us. But there was just nothing anybody could do, I think, to prepare us for how good it is today. So maybe talk a little bit about, what do you think were the best rewards for the price that we paid for so many years?
I mean, now I feel like spending every day with our kids, honestly, and being at every single thing. I forget how good we have it because it's just our life, right? That other people have to go to their jobs all day. And sometimes I'm like, how do people do it? Like they're, at their jobs all day and they've got kid things all night. And, but I just, like you said, I never thought it was going to be this good. The only way, you described it one time and it was I forgot how you described how good it was, like to describe to somebody how good it feels to be free where we're at. The only thing I could say is like when you're a kid and you have zero responsibilities and it's summertime and you get to go to your friends every day and you get to go play and you get to go do all the fun things. You don't have to think about money. You don't have to think about what time it is. You don't have to think any of that. You have total freedom when you're a little kid. And you're playing in the summer. You don't have school to go to. It's kind of like that, right? You don't have anything to do. You don't have money's not an issue. If you want to go somewhere, we go somewhere. If I want to buy something. Now, we still are disciplined when it comes to those things. Yeah. We still are like, okay, like, do we need it? Do we, but that's the only way I can describe how good it is. Yeah. But if knowing how good it is now, I would have worked 10 times harder. Right. And we worked pretty dang hard.
Yeah, we did.
But the taste of just the freedom and I feel our kids have no idea. Like I'm like, maybe we do need to work because they're like going to think, oh, this is just the way life is. And we still do have, obviously we're still working we work out, we do everything we do with a work ethic. Yeah. So they do see that. But yeah, you always told me how good it was going to be. I never imagined. Yeah. And like you said, you never imagined it was going to be this good either. Yeah. But to have total freedom and never have to worry about money or can I pay, for this or can my kids do this
So it's worth the price you have to pay for the prize.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I would, knowing what I know now and where we are now, I would have done it 10 times harder. Yeah. Even 10 times longer. We didn't pay a price for that long. No. If you think about it, and to have the life that we have now, I would have even done it longer.
Yeah, for sure. So it's totally worth it. So let's switch gears for a second as we just wrap up to the last little bit of the podcast today. We've talked a lot about the things that we did, the rewards, the price we paid, the mentality. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you see that because most people don't win. And I think that almost everybody has what it takes to win. But I'm also very cognizant of the fact that most people aren't going to win. Yeah. Most people are going to live average lives. Most people are, they're just going to barely get by. They're going to live mediocre lives, which to me is depressing. And I think to a lot of people it is too. Some people, that's what they want, right? Yeah. That's their dream in life, is they're totally okay with being middle class or just getting by, and they're totally okay with that. And that's fine. But our goal is to help people. I think my mission in life, the thing that I really enjoy is helping people go from where they're at to where they really want to be if they're looking for that path, right? Yeah. So what are some of the biggest mistakes you see people make, especially like spouses from your perspective, or even not, because you were just as much a part of the business as I was. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see people make en route to success? What stops them? What maybe causes failure or causes them to quit trying? Or what are some of the biggest mistakes you see? Constantly we're pointing out like, oh, hey, this is why they don't win, or this. And of course you don't tell people that, but you and I have conversations. So it's very obvious. This is why they're not winning. Mm-hmm. What are some of those reasons?
Discipline's the biggest, I would have to say. Like doing what you have to do every day, regardless of if you want to or not.
I love Mike Tyson's definition of discipline is doing the things you have to do, but doing them like you love them. Or do the things you hate to do, but do them like you love them. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And that's such a good definition of discipline. The one we always grew up with, Art Williams always said, discipline is doing the thing. How did he say it again? Discipline is doing the things. I can't even remember.
You have to do it.
Maybe we'll look it up and I'll have Mallory post it, because I don't know how I forgot. I used to say it every day.
All the time. Yeah. Well, and you always do say this, discipline is easy if you're disciplined. Yep. People go, well, what does that mean? It is easy. The more and that's why I think having goals, 75 Hard has helped us tremendously, because every day you have to have discipline. And it's not like, oh, I can have discipline for 3 days and then take a couple days off. It's, I have to be disciplined for 75 days straight. And it's not just like one thing, like, oh, I have to go to the gym every day or work out every day. It's, I have to do this. I have to drink a gallon of water. I have to stick to a diet. I have to read my 10 pages. I have to, do my second workout. For us, that was a walk.
Yep.
I have to take a selfie. It was just like, and some of them are really small.
Yep.
Like drinking water. How hard is it to drink water?
Yeah.
Well, for some people, it's really hard. Like, I don't drink any water. But, and how hard is it to take a selfie of yourself?
It's not.
But for 75 days, no matter if you're sick, I had COVID one time when I thought I was
75 hard.
Gonna die.
Yeah.
My lungs.
Yep.
Remember, I felt like I couldn't breathe, and we're like, "Okay, well, we still need to go on a run. We still need to do our workouts." And that's what the discipline. It's doing it even when you don't want to, even when it's freezing outside.
Yeah, I think that just reminded me. His thing is doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, whether you feel like it or not.
Yeah.
That was his definition. Doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, whether you feel like it or not, is Art Williams' definition of discipline, and that's the definition we grew up on.
Yeah. Well, and coming back to discipline is easy if you're disciplined. And our first time we did 75 hard, I mean, it was hard.
Yeah.
It sucked. I mean, every day I was counting down, and it just seemed like, when is this going to end? Yeah. Like, this sucks so bad.
Well, and what's cool about that is, like, right now we're doing Solid 30, and Solid 30 is so easy because it really is just a part of our life. You know, even though it's working out every day and doing these things, it's just a part of our life. So it's something so simple.
Yeah.
But a lot of those disciplines, some of them came from business or 75 hard.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, the first time around, it was super hard.
It was.
The second time around, I didn't even, it was so easy.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about it. Like, we had some friends that were doing it around the same time as us, and she's like, we just can't wait for it to be done. I'm like, I don't even realize, like, it's just something we've been doing.
We just built it into our daily habits.
Yeah, it was not even, it wasn't work, it wasn't, but at first, when we first did the 75 hard, it was hard.
Yeah.
And it was more mental, and that's what success is in anything, in business, and it's hard at first. And then once you create those daily discipline habits, it becomes easy and even fun.
Yep.
And that's what I think a lot of people, they shy away from that, or they take a day off.
Yep.
And one day becomes 2 days, 2 days become a week, a month, and then before you know it, so you stop doing the daily, or they'll start having success, and they'll slow down, or they'll push on the brakes, and then everything comes crashing down, and then they're starting all over again. Yeah,
and I feel like that is a huge thing. That's a lot of people do that. They'll get it going, and then something will happen. They'll get sick, some personal issue in their life or whatever, and they let up. And we used to always talk about this all the time. Like, if you own a McDonald's franchise and all of a sudden you start having, like, you have a personal problem or something, you don't put a sign on the front door that says, hey guys, we're closed for business because my wife and I are arguing or something that day. You just open up. You go do what you have to do regardless, right? And I think a lot of times people in their lives, they do that. They let up when it matters most.
Yeah.
Which is when it's uncomfortable, because everybody will do it when it's comfortable.
Right.
But willing to do those things when it's not comfortable, right?
Well, and that makes me think of another reason why people fail is excuses.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've heard every excuse. I mean, there have been times when we were arguing on the way to the meeting. I mean, we wanted to kill each other on our way to a meeting, and we walk in and there's hundreds of people there, and we are happy. We are high-fiving.
Yep.
We are just,
It's not the time. Yeah, we've got something to do.
Yeah, nobody knew what was going on, and when you're in business, nobody should know what's going on.
Nobody needs to know. And it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter, right? Because it's something totally separate from where you're at right now.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, and a lot of the issues maybe that we're fighting or we are frustrated in those times were really just communication anyway, because we really were both paying the price.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes people have those arguments, and they're legitimate arguments because maybe one of them's working hard and the other one's not, because they let up on their discipline.
Yeah.
Right? And so I agree with you that discipline is a big thing. And discipline also, like I would argue to say, like, if you're overweight, if you have visceral fat on your gut, maybe you're not disciplined. You drink soda, or you just don't have the discipline to go run every day. It's uncomfortable. You say, I don't have the time. You have the time. Right. But you've just got to have the discipline.
Well, and that's I think if somebody's like, hey, how do I start creating this?
Yeah.
Put yourself on blast. Do a challenge. Like, let's say you want to go run 2 miles a day.
Yeah.
Running, you hate running.
Like do solid 30. There's a challenge.
Do solid 30. Yeah, exactly. Solid 30. But let everybody know you're doing it and keep yourself accountable, because that's what you notice is that people, when they're scared to do something, they're not going to tell anybody they're going to do it, and they'll do it for a couple, but nobody knows.
Yeah,
so
they go,
can't let.
well, I'm the kind of person that just does, I don't talk.
Right.
And really what you're saying is I'm scared that everybody's going to see me punk out.
Yeah. So it's like, no, I'm going to tell everybody I'm doing solid 30. I'm going to start here. Who wants to join me?
Yeah.
Because you can't let those people down.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that we thought, hey, who wants to join us? Let's do it together. Let's do this challenge together. Then you're putting yourself on blast, and then you have to post about it.
Yeah.
So I think just something like that to keep yourself accountable, and the discipline, and having maybe other people do it with you is, start doing these daily things that create habits and discipline.
Yep. Discipline and accountability is a big one. Yeah. I feel like another thing on discipline is like financial discipline. Like a lot of people, we'll see them, they complain about being broke, and then you see them eating out.
Or go on vacation. Yeah. I swear what blows my mind are people that are like, oh, we're so broke, we have no money. But they're the first ones to go on vacations constantly.
You know why they're trying to do that? They're trying to escape from reality.
Yeah.
And it's like, it drives me crazy. Instead of confronting reality and having the discipline to do the uncomfortable things, like, hey, we're going to pay a price because it's a price. Instead of going on vacation and having fun and trying to let the pressure out. And I feel like a lot of people do that. It's like they build up this pressure, and then instead of saying getting better and bigger and able to hold more pressure, they let it out. Right? They let it out, whether it's going on vacation or, just letting themselves go. We're at an age now where I start to see people I went to high school with or whatever, and I go, man, they look different, And I always want to progress. I want to become better, not be like, oh yeah, well, I'm older now, so it's okay to be overweight, or it's okay to just let myself go, or whatever. Yeah. You see a lot of times, we used to talk about this in business too, is like you'll see somebody, they'll let themselves go and they'll start gaining weight and they'll start dressing frumpy or whatever. And then all of a sudden one of them starts getting in really good shape and they start dressing really good and you go, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Right? That's not a good sign for someone's
They're trying to impress somebody.
Relationship, right? And so for me, I always want to be that person where I'm striving to be better for you. I'm striving to be better for my children. I want to be an incredible example. I say it all the time, like I'm a badass, but I'm also trying to program myself to remind myself that like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
Like I want to be that person to where I always, where not only am I looking at myself, but my children or you as my wife look at me and go, dang, he's always trying to get better. He's always trying to improve. And I see so many people use that little valve to release pressure, like you're saying, though, whether it's vacation or whatever, to release financial discipline. Yeah. And it's like, all you have to do is be disciplined, save your money, invest your money, live below your means.
And it doesn't take that much, but people it doesn't take that much to save every single month for 10, 15 years down the road to you're totally set, but people aren't willing to. Instead, they want to.
They got to have a bigger house, or nicer cars or whatever. And, it's like, if you're broke, why do you have a 3-bedroom house? Oh, well, I've got 3 kids or whatever. I'm sorry, but you could do it in a studio, right? There are a lot of people in this world that figure out how to make it work. And if you're serious about winning in life, you're serious about getting ahead, wouldn't it be a good thing to teach your kids discipline? Like, hey, kids, here's where we're at, but we're going to buckle down. We're going to get disciplined, have a conversation with your family and go, look, these are the things we're going to do. We're going to get in good shape. We're going to start saving our money. Yep. We're going to get financially sound. We're going to have great relationships. We're going to have our spiritual life in order. We're going to do these things and we're going to create success. But all of those things take discipline to not only talk about, but also follow through, right?
Yeah. I always think about doing stuff like that with our kids. Like, maybe we should move into an apartment just to like freak our kids out and just show them like what it takes to, if you're disciplined and you pay the price, that there are rewards at the end. Yeah. Of doing that. Yeah.
Well, and I think in route to success, discipline also, you already said it, comes with accountability. So you've got to hold yourself accountable. Yeah. And I think it helps to do it in front of a crowd, right? In front of other people, right? And a lot of times, like if you're, say you're going to lose weight or whatever, it helps to post that on social media, or it helps to tell everybody around you, hey, I'm going to do this, because then, someone's going to ask you in 3 weeks, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
It's like when we joined business, people used to always, hey, I remember this time, this one guy used to always say, hey, you made your millions yet, buddy? And then like 3 years later, we were making 40, 50 grand a month. And I ran into that guy and he said that same thing to me and goes, hey, buddy, you made your millions? You made your millions yet?
I remember that.
I got made 40 grand last month. What'd you make? And I loved it. It was so worth it to get to that point because it was accountability. He was holding me accountable. I didn't do it in spite of him. I'm so grateful for there were people like him, because my natural personality is like, I'll show you.
Yeah.
Like, I want to quit 1,000,000 times, but I'm going to do it just to prove that dude wrong. Like, I can't quit and let him be right.
You almost have to, and we had that like an oh yeah list. Like I will show you how great I am.
Yep.
Like there's gonna be people, sadly, that hope you don't succeed.
Yeah.
And we had that list, like whether it's a written down list or in our head, of people that we were gonna show them.
Yeah. Like we are good enough. We can do this.
Yeah.
We do have the discipline. We are willing to hold ourselves accountable.
Yeah.
So anything else besides discipline and accountability? What else do you think causes people to maybe not succeed? So like, I think a lot of times in relationships, people will just go, oh yeah, that's his job or that's her job. Like, one of the things that drives me crazy is when people say, oh, it's not my job.
Yeah.
It's like, so what?
Yeah.
Right? If it makes your life better. So I think, when someone, if you're not married yet, like who you choose to marry is going to have the most impact on your future than anything. I mean, it will be the biggest deciding factor on your life, is the person you choose to make your life partner, right?
Right.
So what are some other things you think that, in I guess that general area of what people make decisions that cause failure,
Well, that was, if you think about it, both of us, when we were young, we were attracted to each other because of our ambition.
Yep.
Both of us had. And that's what I looked for. Like when I was dating, and I wanted somebody that wanted more out of life, wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to go to college and have this job. And I wanted somebody that wanted to do big things with their lives. And that's why when I found you, you were exactly what I was looking for. But like you said, your spouse will be the biggest and it's kind of sad when you do see, one spouse wants it so bad, but the other spouse just holds them down. They're like an anchor, because they're not willing to get uncomfortable. They're not. So yeah, if you're not married, you really need to look at those things when you're dating or who you're dating, because that will become your reality unless you can change them, which not likely. You can change somebody because it's who they are. You can't
change someone else. They have to decide to change
themselves. Right.
I always say it's like trying to push a wet noodle. If you're trying to change someone else, it's like pushing a wet noodle. It just don't go anywhere, right? Yeah. They've got to make a decision. It's like,
and us together, we were excited to work hard, and we were very ambitious to do something big with our lives. Like we both we had big goals and dreams.
Yeah. So when you see these couples, right, we see it a lot of times where one of them's really ambitious and one of them's not, or one of them says they're ambitious and says they're doing all this stuff, and then the spouse is like, no, they're not. They're not doing what they say they're doing, or they don't, and it causes these challenges. My suggestion is always like, hey, if you say you're going to do something, do it.
Yeah.
Like I've always been that person where when I made a commitment in front of a crowd, it wasn't just the crowd I was trying to fulfill that commitment for, but it was also you. Like I wanted you to see me say, hey, he said he was going to do this. I already know he's going to do it.
Yeah. Well, and your spouse knows that, like, oh, he's a fraud.
Yeah.
Like he never does, or she never does what she says she's going to do. And I always feel that way too. Like if I say I'm going to do something, I have to do it not only for myself, but for my spouse, because more so for my spouse and myself than everybody else around me, because I have to be a woman of my word. And that, I feel like to us, that's so important, and probably why we won in business, because we said we were going to do it. So we did it. Yeah. And we weren't going to let anything else
get in the way of doing what we said we were going to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, we already had come to an agreement. This is what we wanted, and we were both going to play our part. So I think it's great advice. Like if there's, a partnership listening to this right now and one of you is on board and the other one's not, you're trying to figure out, what do I do? Say you're going to go do it and do it. And then a lot of times when you do that, your spouse is going to go, oh my gosh, they're actually doing what they say they're going to do.
Yeah.
And it breeds trust, right?
Well, and a lot of times early on, and because I wasn't super on board early on, but you said you were going to do it and you were doing it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of husbands and wives, like if the wife doesn't support you because they watch their spouse say they're going to do it, and then they take time off, or they go party, or they are okay with and like you always used to say, your spouse is testing you.
Yeah.
They're, hey, you never said yes to anything like, oh, hey, I have a family reunion. Can we go? You were like, nope. Family pictures. Nope. I have this. Nope. And so a lot of times your spouse wants to test you to see if you'll cave.
Are you telling me you were testing me all those years?
Always. It's like, is he gonna cave? But I think
probably not even, you really probably were, but I don't think you were actually aware of it at that point.
Right.
But I was just so obsessed about like, hey, I'm going to go win.
Well, and then I believed in you, and I believed in it, and I believed we were going to win because I saw your commitment.
Yeah.
That nothing, no matter what, you weren't wavering.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people say, oh, I can't get my spouse on board. But when they have something and you waver, is that a word?
Yeah.
Waver. They go, oh, yep, he's not that serious.
Yeah.
And you see that like, oh, well, he'll take a day off.
Yep.
So he's not that serious. And then, but if you're committed and 100% in, then eventually they go, dang, like and there was a point in our relationship, I felt like I'm either going with you and I'm getting on board 100%, or I'm getting left behind and we're no longer going to be together.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling that really early on. I think we were still dating.
Yeah.
That I either was going in, diving in and doing all the things it took to be successful, or else, I needed to go find a different life.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. I think it's great advice. Last thing before we go today, I wanted to cover this because I think it's important. We kind of already touched on it, but when we talk about, we see a lot of people make these mistakes with discipline financially.
Yeah.
I know for me, we always kind of had these different financial blueprints, right? Where naturally I always wanted to save and invest and get financially independent, get financially free. And I grew up in this poverty-stricken situation, really. And so I kind of had this like, hey, I got to hold on to everything mentality. Yeah. And you grew up different.
Yeah.
And which, shout out to your mom for being a single mom and raising you with that mindset where you had this mindset of abundance, you know? And, so you kind of always looked at like, hey, we're making money. We're always going to make more money.
Yeah.
And I was just obsessed about saving and investing our money. For example, for those of you guys listening, when we were making about $20,000 or $30,000 a month, we were only paying $600 a month, $625 a month for a little like townhouse condo, apartment kind of thing, right? And I didn't want to move out of that. In fact, I was driving a Nissan Altima. Mm-hmm. You were driving a Mazda 6 that you had still in high school. So we were making $20,000, $30,000 a month. We hadn't bought new cars. Yeah. We were living in a $600 a month condo, which probably today would be $1,000 a month or whatever, but it was like it's POS.
It's probably like $1,500,
babe. Maybe something like that. Yeah. And it wasn't a great place to live. We had no furniture. Like we didn't have a couch.
Nope.
We had one chair in our house and it was like a fold out camping chair. Right? I'm telling the truth, right?
Yeah.
And we're making $20,000-$30,000 a month.
Yep.
And you would get so fired up because I just wanted to save and invest our money. To me, every dollar we made was an opportunity to save and invest it and get free for our future. And I think for you, sometimes it was like you maybe felt like I was always making you sacrifice. But then, finally, when we did move into a house, we were making about $40,000 a month-ish, $40,000 a month. Mm-hmm. And it was $1,125 a month. And I did not want to pay $1,100 a month because to me, it was like an extra $500 a month that we could save and invest.
Yeah.
Even though we were doubled our income. And then, we get financially independent, and then we bought, you bought a house in Vegas. I wasn't even there, right? That's a whole nother story, right? So this is how cheap I was. I was so mad.
Oh, yeah.
And because I didn't want to spend the money. I was just so cheap, right?
Yeah.
So I was I think still am, mega disciplined financially. And we've had nice stuff, right? We've lived in big houses, we've bought incredible cars, we've traveled around the world, and, luxury watches and handbags and shoes. And we've done all of those things, but we have been very, very, very financially disciplined.
Yeah.
Give me your thoughts on that, and what do you think? Because now you've seen the impact it's had on our lives. And I know sometimes it's still hard for you, or it's not hard for me, but sometimes it still is. I know it, because I'm still like that.
Oh, yeah.
So give people your thoughts about what were the struggles you've been through, coming to that perspective. What are the good things? How does it feel now? Give people your thoughts on that.
I'm very grateful that you are like that. You are a hoarder of money.
Yeah, some people collect baseball cards. Some people collect cars. Yeah, I collect a big investment portfolio.
Sometimes I'm like, wait, are we broke? Do I not realize that we don't have any money? Because yes, you are very frugal, but thank goodness for that, because I am not. And because we paid a price of not spending money on little, stupid things or where we didn't need to, and you just invested. Today we are free because of that. Now, if I had the money, we probably wouldn't be free, because I would be like, yeah, we can buy that. Yeah, we can do that. And I always have been abundance, that we can always make more money. We can all,
which is true.
Which is true. It is. Yeah. And I do believe your thoughts become reality. Yep. So what you think, I don't want to be we can't do anything because we have to keep all of our money. And
would you agree, though, when I say that I save and invest? I'm not saving and investing out of scarcity, but saving and investing for I'm always thinking about how wealthy we're going to be in the future.
Oh, yeah.
Babe, we're going to be I'm always calculating. There's another thing I'm always selling you on, right?
Oh, yeah.
How much money we're going to have in the future, how much we're going to be able to leave behind to our children, what a legacy we're going to be able to create for our family.
Yeah.
Right?
You're all 15 years from now, we're going to have this much money, and imagine this, and we'll be able to, you used to say, once we have, we thought $1 million was so much money.
Right.
I'm like, why? But
it's a good place to start in life, but that's all it is about a start.
But you used to always say, once we have $1 million, we can do whatever you can do, whatever you want.
Yeah.
And then, no.
Get to $1 million and go, okay, I think we need 10.
10 million. Yeah. So, but I am very grateful that one of us was disciplined and had a vision, right? And it was just it didn't take a lot. Obviously we have always saved quite a bit. But for somebody that maybe doesn't make a ton of money, and they're like, oh, well, I don't even make that much money, I can't save that much. You were going over numbers with my mom, and you're like, if you just saved $200 a month back then, how much money you would have today.
Based on the actual rate of return, the actual investment.
Funds, yeah. Yep. And it's mind-blowing how little it takes. Yep. But people think, oh, yeah, I could never do that.
The same thing with getting in shape. It really doesn't take that much to get in incredible shape. 45 minutes a day.
Yeah.
You can get in phenomenal shape, right? You just have to make one good decision for 45 minutes a day, and then about one other decision, and that's just eat a good meal per day, right? And that's just, as long as you just eat one meal, you only got to make one good decision, right?
And it's just about your habits, and that's just it. That's with life. Your habits are going to determine everything in your life.
I know we both see it. We see a lot of people make mistakes in this area.
Yeah.
Where when they make money, they just spend it. They upgrade. As soon as they start making more money, they upgrade their house, they upgrade their cars, they start going to nicer restaurants, they buy clothes, they're buying their kids all this stuff, rather than just saying, hey, it's okay to get necessities.
Yeah.
And you should. Your family. So my perspective is always, our standard of living should increase, but our monthly expenses should not.
Yeah.
And that's because as we save and invest, it should be easy to, pay cash for cars or house or whatever it may be. We got criticized a lot because we rented for a long time until we could pay cash for a house, right?
Yeah.
And people would criticize us. Oh, if you're making all this money, why do you live there? Or why do you drive this? Or, all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, I really just did not care what anybody thought.
Yeah.
They weren't paying my bills, and it's always easy for someone else to spend somebody else's money, to live their life for them, especially when you're making disciplined decisions.
Yeah.
Because most people don't have discipline, so they would make those decisions out of the lack of discipline, not for discipline, because discipline seems uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it is if you're not disciplined.
Right. One thing, it just made me think of this. One thing, we always try to make ourselves uncomfortable in some way. Even we have to check ourselves, like even financially, like, okay, well, we don't need that. Like, yeah, we can buy that, but we don't, we don't need to just like ball out, right? Like we could buy that car, we could do this, but we don't need it. So, sometimes we do stuff because we want it, but I feel like we always reward ourselves. So we wait, just like your watch. You wanted that watch for ever.
10 years.
Forever. And you stay disciplined. And finally, because I'm the spender, finally I just bought it for you because I knew eventually you were going to buy it, but I just didn't know when. So I was like, I'll just buy it for you now.
Yeah.
But where was I going with that? One thing you did early on that I think was really great with our finances is that you always, in our bank account, you always made it look like we didn't have money.
Yeah.
You would sweep all of our money out, whether it was investments in different accounts. So our checking account, you didn't keep any money in there. And I think it was to mentally trick. We knew we had money.
Yeah.
But if it's not there, it's not there.
Yeah, I always looked at once it's in my investments, it's there forever.
Gone. Yeah. And we still feel that that money is gone. It's disappeared. And so we always had that, oh my gosh, stayed in that creative stage to make more money because we always felt like we didn't have money. Available money point, to spend. So, sometimes if you have to do stuff like that, get in the, don't have a cushion in your bank account that you feel like, oh, I can just, do whatever with.
Yeah, or have the perspective once you put the money in the investment. It's not, we have so many people will call us, hey, can I pull money out of my investments? It's like, why would you make that decision?
It blows my mind. Yeah. It's very, very frustrating, obviously, because you're like, they don't even know what they don't even know.
It's costing them a future by making
their
this
entire
decision.
Future.
Whether they could just go make money because you could just go make some more money. So if you really want that thing, rather than taking money out of your investments for your future, how about go make some more money and reward yourself with that thing, whatever it is that you want, right? And don't cost yourself a future because it's the same as credit in my mind.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it comes back to that discipline and we've stayed disciplined. Like, it's just like, once we invest our money, we don't ever pull it out. It stays there for forever. Yeah. And it's just our fund of, when we get old.
I guess something. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Our kids are not getting our money.
It's our opportunity. Yeah. And that's another thing, as we wrap up, is like, it's one of the things we're always talking about. How do we continue to keep our kids to have the desire we have? Yeah. And I tell them right now, like, Rome's 8 and I always go, dude, you got 8 more summers, 8 more summers. And you got to start thinking about what you're going to do with your life, Yeah. And the fact is, I'll let all my kids stay there probably as long as they want, but I want them to be prepared for reality in life and work ethic and focus and determination and achieving goals. And so I want them to have the expectation they're not getting anything. I tell them all the time, it's my money. Yeah. Right? Not yours,
Well, and that, we did the business. We worked so hard to give our kids everything, but we don't want them to think that they can have everything.
Yeah. They're not entitled. Yeah. We don't want them to be entitled.
I always say, you want to buy that? Go find a way to make some money and earn money. Just like we have had to earn money to buy the things we want, and you can do the same. Yeah. It's so funny because, ask them, how? I'm just a kid. And I'm like, well, we can find ways for you to go make some money.
which teaches them to be creative, just like we had to get creative to make money and accomplish our goals.
Yep.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks, babe, for doing this. I know that it wasn't the most comfortable thing in the world.
Oh, it was great.
And I told you it was going to be just fine.
Yep.
But thank you so much for being on with me today. I love you. Thank you for paying the price that you've paid with us up to this point. I know we've got so many more exciting things to do in the future, and we're just getting started, but I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you. You're so sweet. I love you.